Today's daf, Be'ezras Hashem, is daf Mem Tes, and we're going to start from Mem Ches Amid Beis, and it's a sugya that will segue into another topic, but mostly about Nach. So let's start. Tanrabanan. It's about like just a little bit above the white lines on 48b. Tanrabanan. The rabbis taught Haruge Malchus, someone who's killed by the king. Let's say he rebelled against the king, and the king just with no court has a right to kill the subject. Nichseim lemelech. Then their assets belong to the king. His possessions belong to the king. Karuge bezdin. If you're killed because of the court system, nichseim liyarshim. That the possessions belong to the inheritors, like a normal situation. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees, and he says, "Af haruge malchus nichseim liyorshim." Even if you were killed by the king, the king doesn't take over your possession. The possessions belong to the inheritors. Amr Leila Rabbi Yehuda. So they asked the question, Rabbi Yehuda, how could you say that if someone is killed because of the king, his possessions belong to the inheritors? Let's see a pasuk in Tanakh. Achov, the pasuk tells us that Achov had desired a certain vineyard of his neighbor called Novos, the king Achav. He was a big Rasha. So, and he couldn't, got Novos, didn't want to sell it to the king. So his wife Izebel advised him, let's just make up hire witnesses to say testimony that he rebelled against you, and then you'll be able to get uh, his his vineyard. So that's what happens. They made a mock trial. Novice was found guilty. Novice was found guilty, and therefore the pasuk says, "Hi Lewis, we just began." 5 lines from the wide lines. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda, like Kvarnema, but Pasuk says, "Hine bekerem navois asher yorad sham lirishtoi." We see that King Achav inherited the vineyard belonging to Navois. So we see from this that even if someone is killed by the king, the nechseihem do not belong to the Yorshim. The possessions belong to the king, because Achav had Navois killed because he was a moirid b'malchus. He rebelled against the king, and he seized, and then he took over his vineyard. Amalehen, so Yehuda answered, no. Ben achi aviv hayav. This was Navais was a first cousin to Achav, the king, and therefore, anyway, the king inherited his possessions because he's a relative. So the Gemara asks, Why did Achav, the first cousin, inherit? Navais had many children. So didn't his many children, why didn't his many children inherit him? Amal hence, Rabbi Yehuda answered, Oisav is bon of Harak. He killed all his children. Shnemam loyes the main novice, main bon of Reisi. So it seems that the blood of Novice and the blood of Novice's children were held responsible, was held against Achav for killing an innocent person. So since he killed Novice and his children, therefore Achav inherited the assets, not because he is the king, but because he's the only living relative. Rabbanim want to bring a proof from that pasuk that Achav inherited because someone who was married by Malchus gets the possession, king gets to his possessions. Hahu, that situation was, he never killed all Yanovis' children. Banim haruin lotzis memenu. Novis could have had more children, and therefore that was held against Achav for killing Novis. But he really did, when he died, Novis died, he had children. And those children should have inherited Novis's vineyard. But the fact is that since Novis was killed because he was a Moirid B'Malchus, that's why his vineyard went to Achav the king. So the Gemara says like this. So again, we have a machlekes back up. We have a machlekes in the Gemara. If someone is killed by the king because he rebelled against the king, the Rabbanan says his possessions belong to the king. Rabbi Yehuda says his possessions belong to his inheritance. Inheritors. It's not confiscated. Says the Gemara, Bishlam de Omar Nichsein Melech. If you tell me that his possessions belong to the king, Hainu dechsiv berach noves elchim v'melech. That's why the Edin came to say that what did Noves do actually? He cursed God and he cursed King Achav. And that's why by cursing God alone, then he would have gotten killed, but his possessions would have ended up by his inheritors. But the fact that they added king, the Edom wanted that the possessions should end up by the king. If you hold that his possessions anyway, even if you curse the king, the possessions end up by the inheritors, so why did they make up a trumped up charge that he cursed the king if anyways his possessions would have been held by the inheritors? So the Gemara asks back, according to your reasoning, Elohim Lamali, even if you want to say that the Nechseim belonged to the king, then why do you have to say that he cursed God too? Just say he cursed the king. Ela Pushi Rizka, they wanted to add that Novois committed this ultimate crime. He was on a cursing spree, and he cursed God and the king. Hachanami La Pushe Rizka. So also he just expanded it. He wanted to curse. They wanted to get everybody, the whole crowd, worked up against Novois. So they had these trumped up charges that he cursed not only God, but he cursed the king as well, or the other way around. Okay, now. And this is where we segue into our sugya today. If you tell me that the possessions belong to the king, so there's a story that Yoav, who was like the chief of staff, let's say, for David HaMelech, and yet when David died, David told his son Shlomo, do me a favor, kill him, get rid of him right away. And right away, Shlomo, when he took over the kingdom, like Lahavdil Trump, he did thing the first week, he killed Yoav. Now, why did he want to kill Yoav? Although Yoav was a big tzaddik, David HaMelech was very embarrassed by a couple of things that Yoav did, his chief of staff, his general. Yoav, the general, killed Avner, and he killed Amasa. He killed Avner. Avner was the chief of staff of Shaul. He was the head general of Shaul. And supposedly, Avner made peace with David HaMelech because after David tried to become king, Avner, who was originally a general for Shaul HaMelech, he made Shaul's son to take over the kingship, but then he abandoned Shaul's son and he joined forces with David HaMelech, and that really unified the whole Shvatim to accept David as the king. But Yoav, it could be that he was threatened that Avner is now coming into the cabinet. He made up a charge against Yoav, against Avner, that Yavner killed his brother. And so Yoav killed Avner. And the Yoav also killed another person called Amasa. Because of that, David did not want to, David cursed Yoav. Let's put it this way. David gave curses to Yoav, but he didn't kill him. But he secretly instructed his son, Shlomo, do me a favor, when you become king, that's the first order of business, kill Yoav. So when the pasuk says, "Vayanos Yoav ran away from Shlomo, El Oyel Hashem, V'yichazek bekanas Mizbeach," and he went into the base of Migdash and held on to the Mizbeach, and he was trying to say, "I don't want to be killed by you, Shlomo. If you're going to kill me, have the Bezdin kill me." Iksiv loy eitze. I'm never leaving the base of Migdash. Kipoy amos. I'm going to die over here. So why did Yoav care if he's going to be killed by Shlomo directly, or if he was going to be killed by the Sanhedrin? Either way, he was going to get killed. He's a dead man. So the answer is because if he's killed by Shlomo, his possessions belong to the king. If he's killed by the Bezdin, then his possession will end up by his inheritors. If even if you're killed by the king, according to the opinion that even if you're killed by the king, your possessions belong to your inheritors, what's the difference if who he was going to get killed of? What was Yoav trying to gain by running into the base of Migdash, holding on to the Mizbeach, and say, Shlomo, if you want to kill me, I want the Sanhedrin to kill me. And says the Gemara, he did it to buy some time, because if the king kills you, he could kill you without a trial. If the Bezdin kills you, you need a trial a little bit, and you have to sleep over it overnight, so he was buying time. So now we're going to go on to Yoav. Again, Yoav was the chief of staff of David, and David said to him that cursed him out, and then instructed his child Shlomo to kill him. So Vayashiv bin Yahu as a melech David lema koidi beYov koyananu. Bin Yahu, who was in charge of killing Yov, returned to the King Shlomo and telling him that Yov wants to be killed in the Beis Hamikdash. Amalei, what did Yov actually tell Shlomo Melech? Zil Emelei, go tell Shlomo, Tarti lesevet b'haygava. Don't do two things to me. E katlis if you want to kill me, kabul latusi delati avuch. Then you should accept all the curses that your father tried to curse me should go on you and your family. V'iloi, if you're not going to kill me, if you don't want to accept those curses, shafki deleki b'latusi delatei avuch. Then let me just be cursed by the curses of your father, but don't kill me. So so basically, Shlomo HaMelech said, I'll accept the curses, what my father cursed you, but I'm going to kill you. And he killed Yoav. Amrav Yehuda, and it came true. Amrav Yehuda Amarav, Kol HaKlol Shekila David Es Yoav Niskayimu B'Zari Shel David. All the curses that David HaMelech cursed Yoav came true in the kids of David, and grandkids of Shlomo HaMelech. It all came true. One of the curse that that David gave Yoav was Al Yikaris Mibeis Yoav Zov U'Mitzayim Machzeh Bapel V'Noifel Becher V'Chaser Lechem. He cursed him that there should be in your family Zov and a Mitzora, and somebody who has foot ailments, somebody who was killed by a sword, and somebody who was so poor he couldn't have bread. Zov merachavim. The ksiv amelech rachavim is ambus laus by merkava lonas rushleim uksiv kol merkava shikra v'lavazov tamei. So the Torah says that the Tanakh says that Rechavam, who's the son of Shlomo, who's the grandson of David HaMelech, became a Zav. He had like erectile dysfunction or something like that. And the Gemara has a Gzera Shava. Mitzora, one of the grandkids of David HaMelech, was a Mitzora, Uziyahu, also a grandkid of David. The Ksiv Cheske Gava Liba Ad Hashris v'Yimal B'Shem Elakav v'Yavilei Hashem Lakdal Mizbeach Torahs. He was one of those kings that was very, very successful, but it went to his head, and he decided he wanted to go into the Beis Hamikdash to do the Ketores. And he got leprosy. So one of the kids of David HaMelech, grandchildren of David HaMelech, became a Mitzora. Machzik Bepelach. So one of the kids could not walk the Asa from the king Asa, the Ksiv. King Asa, again, is a Jewish king who is a grandchild of a descendant of David HaMelech. And the Ksiv, Rak Le'ezik Nosei Cholas Raglav. We see the pasuk. He was a perfect tzaddik. He was a good king, but when he got older, his feet got sick. Amar Yehuda Amarav. What did he get sick with? She'achzai podagra. The sickness called podagra, which affected his feet, which made him somebody who needs a cane. Amalei Marzutra Rav Nachman. Marzutra asks his father Rav Nachman, Hey Chedami, how does it feel when somebody has this ailment called podagra? What did you feel it in your feet? Amalei, he says, Kamachet b'vasachai. You feel a lot of like pins and needles going into your foot. So how did Rav Nachman know the feeling of such an ailment? If you want, I can tell you, Rav Nachman had that ailment, so he knew exactly. He had a tradition from his teachers that that's the way the ailment affects you. It's like you almost feel that your nerves are tingling all the time and as sharp as needles. If you want, I can tell you. Malach told Rav Nachman how this pedagaria is. But anyway, Asa, the king Asa, was a descendant of David HaMelech, suffered from that ailment. Noifel Becherev, one of the descendants of David HaMelech, fell by the sword, was stabbed to death. Yashiyahu, the Ksiv Yeres Marim LaMelech Yashiyahu. So Yashiyahu was stabbed to death. Amrav Yehuda Marav, Shasa Kol Gufa Kigivra. The Mitzrayim made his entire body like a sieve. He was stabbed not numerous times. And then the Chasar Lechem Meichanya. Ichanya was another the king right before Tzidkiyahu, and he's also descendant of David HaMelech. So he was taken into captivity by Nebuchadnezzar, and he was fed by evil Murdoch like a piece of bread every day. But the point is that he was a king that didn't even have food. So we see that David cursed Yoav. Yoav transferred the curses over to Shlomo, and in all of the descendants of David HaMelech, you could find each one of those curses take effect on one of his descendants. Rav Yehuda Rav, so Yehuda said it in the name of Rav, Haini Damre Inche. That's what people say. And we go to Daf. We go to Daf Mem Tesam and Aleph. You should be the one that's cursed and not the cursor. Somehow, the one that's cursed, at least if you don't, if someone curses you and it doesn't bother you, it automatically goes on to the person that gave you the curse, because curses are something that if you think about it, it affects you. But if you don't think about it, it's not going to affect you. But it's going to definitely affect the person who gave you the curse, because the reason why he gave you the curse, because he thinks it's effective. Anyway, now the Gemara discusses Yoav's trial. Asuyil Yoav Dainin. They brought him to a trial. I guess he wanted, like I said, he didn't want Shlomo or his general to kill him. He wanted a trial in the Sanhedrin. That's why he ran into the base of Mikdash and held on to the Mizbech. Amalei, so they asked Yov the questions that why we want to kill you. So my time Avner, why did you kill Avner? Amalei Goyal Adam Dashar Habit. I was trying the redeemer of the blood of Ashoel, because Avner, who was the general of Shaul, killed my brother Ashoel when there was original civil war, when David originally tried to take the kingdom, and because he was anointed as king, Avner anointed Mephibosheth, the son of Shaul Melech, to take over as king after Shaul passed. And Ashoel tried during the civil war. He tried to kill Avner, but Avner was a very strong person and turned around and killed Asael, who was the brother of Yoav. Says the Gemara, but Avner had a right to kill Asael, because Asael Roidefaber. Asael was chasing after Avner to kill Avner, so therefore he had a right to kill him. Amalei, so Yoav said, he didn't have to kill my brother. He could have shot at his hand or something like that and injured him. And the only time you can kill somebody who's trying to kill you is if you have no other way. But Avner could have injured by damaging one of the limbs of Asoel. Amalei, so they told Yoav, Lo Yachale, Avner could not do that, because therefore Avner was in the right for killing Asoel. Amalei, so Yoav says that's not true. Hashta b'doifer chamishin kiven lei d'ksiv yakeu Avner ba'achrei chanis el chaimish v'omer b'yokem b'doifer chamishin b'kom shemor v'kavet tluyim boy. Avner had such a clear shot to kill Asael that he killed him in the fifth rib, in the place where the gallbladder and the liver meet up. So he was such a precise shooter. So be'echad me'evrav layachale, he couldn't shoot his hand. He didn't have to kill him. So therefore Avner should not have killed my brother, and therefore Yoav said, I had a right to kill Avner. Amalei, so the Bezdin said to him, Nezel Avner, you're right. Avner, we're not going to hold you against you that you killed Avner. But my Tama Ketatul Amasa, why did you kill this Amasa? Now, who is this Amasa? Amasa was another chief general, let's say, for David, and what happened was there was another rebellion. Sheva ben Bichri was trying to rebel against David HaMelech, and David put Amasa in charge to attack this coup by Sheva ben Bichri, and he told him, "I want you to come back to me and tell me that you accomplished the mission in 3 days. In 3 days." But Amasa did not come back in 3 days. He took him a while to gather the troops. So therefore, Yoav, the other general, felt that Amasa was a moirid b'malchus. He rebelled against the King David's instructions, and therefore he deserves death. Amalei Amasa moirid b'malchus hava. Yoav said the reason why I killed Amasa is because he was a moirid b'malchus. So again, Yoav's on trial for killing 2 people, Avner, which he got off on, and now Amasa. Now, so they asked him, why did you kill Amasa? He said, Amasa was a moirid b'malchus. He rebelled against David. He went to gather the people of Yehuda to go war against Sheva ben Bichri, who was doing a coup against David, and he was delayed. He didn't get back to David HaMelech right away. Amalei. So they told him the reason why Amasa took a little bit time to gather the people is when he went to gather the people, there was a big, let's say, learning event going on, Torah event. So he didn't want to interrupt the Torah event, even though he had the instructions of the kings to draft all the people into an army. He delayed it so they can finish their learning. And how do you know that you don't listen to the king when the king tells you to do something and it will interrupt somebody's learning? Malay. So they said, Amasa Achim Barakim Darsh. Amasa had a proof from the pasuk that you don't listen to the king if it violates learning Torah, because Ashkechinu the pasuk lay b'masechta. He found the troops that he was supposed to gather to go to war against Sheva ben Bichri were learning. They opened a Masechta and they started learning. Abasa said, Ksiv, Kol Asher Yamar Espicha L'Yishmas V'Recha L'Chol Asher Tzivenu Yumas. So they told Yeshua, who was like a king, God said, whoever rebels against you and doesn't listen to your words, everything that you command will be put to death. So there we know that if you rebel against the king, it's one law. You get to put to death. Yochel afila divrei Torah. Let's say if you didn't listen to the king because you were learning Torah, Talmud loimer rak chazak ve'ematz. There's a limit to the powers of the king that he can't interrupt somebody who's learning Torah. So Ella, so therefore, they gave him off on Amasa. It's not clear, but Amasa had an excuse not to listen to the king. But Yoav thought that he was a Morid b'malchus. But so really, they're giving him off for killing Avner, and they're giving Yoav off for killing Amasa. So then why are they killing Yoav? Because the answer is Yoav, although he was a general chief of staff of David HaMelech, he joined when David got old, he joined Adoniyahu in starting a new kingdom under Yoav, under one of the children of David, because David was going to die anyway. So Yoav wanted to, keep a job. So he went to Adoniyahu, Shlomo's older brother, and he joined the group that made Adoniyahu king. Now, this is not Avshalom. Avshalom was the other son of David HaMelech many years prior, who tried to become king, and there was a whole rebellion. In fact, Avshalom removed David and kicked him out of the palace, and David was on the run. But that's another story. So Elahu Gavra Mari b'Malchus Hava. Yov was rebelled against the king. The Ksiv Ashmu Abad Yoav Ki Yoav Nota Achre Adiniyahu V'Achre Avshalom Leinota. Yoav was running after Adiniyahu. He made Adiniyahu king, which was not supposed to happen. Shlomo was supposed to be the king. But the other son of David, when there was a rebellion by Avshalom, he did not follow after Avshalom. Why didn't he follow after Avshalom? Amar Yehuda shebikis lidit. He really wanted to do it. Why didn't he join Avshalom's rebellion? It seems that Yoav had something with David, and he preferred David's kids to be the king over David. But he didn't prefer Avshalom, he preferred Adoniyahu. So why didn't he go after Avshalom? Why didn't he follow after Avshalom during Avshalom's rebellion, which was prior to Adoniyahu's rebellion? Again, David's kids rebelled against him during his lifetime, taking over the kingdom while he was still alive. So why didn't he follow after Avshalom? David was still a vigorous person, and he felt that I'm not going to follow Avshalom. David still has some muster. But when Hamelech Zakein, when David became very old, then Yoav abandoned David and joined Adoniyahu. Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina Amar, Rabbi Yochanan bar Chanina said, Adain itztagine shel David keyamin. Amar Rav Yehuda Amarav, David really had a big, Secret Service force. Let's call it Navy SEALs, and they were like 400 men, young kids, who were somehow came from David. David had relations with Goyish women who were Yafas Torah, that became Gerim, of course, the Yafas Torah, and these, since they're Jews, but they're not Jews. They're not Jews from ancestral Jews. Their mother became a Gioris during wars, and David captured these 400 women, and he had children with them. And Hoy Megadle Belur Yisai, they grew a special type of haircut. Umahalchim Barasha Agaisis, they became like heads of the legions, and they were like Navy SEALs. The Hein Bale Agroif from Shal David. Now, these are the strong men of David. They were around during the time of Avshalom, and therefore Yoav, in his good senses, did not follow these people, the Avshalom, because he felt that these Navy SEALs are gonna take care of him. They're gonna kill him. So Yoav did not follow Avshalom. During the time of Adiniyo, I guess these children, abandoned the army, or they retired from the army. So Yoav was not afraid of them anymore. So therefore, he joined Adiniyahu when David HaMelech was older in taking over the Maluch. Says the Gemara, Pligi, the Rab Abba Bar Kana, the Omar Rab Abba Bar Kana, that we just learned from Yossi Bar Chanina that David HaMelech had 400 Navy SEALs. That was his army success. But Rabbi Abba Kanan says, no, not true. It was a combination of Yov, the strategist, and David learning Torah to get taken together. Those two contributed to the successful wars of David HaMelech. David Yoav. If David HaMelech wouldn't do what he was doing, Yoav cannot be successful at war. If it wasn't for Yoav, David could not learn Torah during the time of war. So Yoav was the general, and David was learning Torah. Why was David HaMelech teaching Torah and doing tzedakah during the times of war? Because he had this great general called Yoav. Why was Yoav the great general? Because David was learning. So it was a symbiotic relationship between David and Yoav that contributed to the success of David HaMelech's war, and it was not the 400 Navy SEALs that he had that were children of David HaMelech from Bnei Yifas Torah. But the bottom line is that Yoav was considered to be somebody who rebelled against David by following Adoniyahu. Let's finish up another 2 more minutes, and then 3 minutes, and we'll stop. Vayetze Yoav me'im David vayishlach balochem achrei Avner vayeshru oisid bibar hasira. My bar hasira. Now the pasuk goes back. What excuse did Yoav try to kill Avner? I mean, Avner just joined and made peace with David and wanted to become part of his cabinet because he was the former chief of staff, so to speak, of Shaul HaMelech. But Yoav sent messengers to follow after Avner, and they brought him from Bar Hasira. My Bar Hasira, Bar Hasira Garmer Avner Shaharek. This place called Bar Hasira, those were the two reasons that really Avner was destined to be killed, because during Shaul's reign, there was a period of, let's call it, insanity, where he was trying to kill David before he became king. And 2 times where David had the opportunity to kill Shaul, he did not. One time he stole his water basin when he was in a cave, and one time Shaul came into a cave to relieve himself, and David snuck up on him. David, who was in the cave, snuck on him and cut his cloth from his clothing. And basically, David showed, hey, I'm not trying to kill you. Why are you trying to kill me? That's what he showed Shaul. Instead of Avner calming Shaul down and say, don't chase anymore after David, Avner turned around and incited Shaul HaMelech to further continue his campaign of hate and trying to kill David. So therefore, Avner, those 2 reasons is the reasons why Avner got killed. Now, how did Avner get killed? Avner asked Yoav, when he confronted Avner before he killed him, he asked him, why did you kill my brother? So Ashal Roidifaya. He said, he put him on trial, and he said, why didn't you kill my brother by just shooting him at one of his limbs? And the Avner said, I could not. So therefore, basically, Yoav did not buy Avner's excuse to why Avner killed his brother. But he still had to trick Avner and to get him killed. So how did he trick Avner, who's a big, humongous person, to get him to bow down, and so he could stab him to death. That means he tricked him by asking him a question about, let's say, about somebody who is needs chalitza, a woman who needs chalitza, who needs to take off the shoe off the man, and she doesn't have hands. So he demonstrated by bending down that such a woman would need to remove the shoe of her husband through uh, through his teeth, through her teeth. Basically, he tricked Avner. Yoav tricked Avner to bow down, and when Avner bowed down, that's when Yoav stabbed Avner to death. Again, Vayakeo Sham El Chaimish, Rabbi Yochanan Dev Chamish, Mokum Shamar Kaveh Tluim Boy. The Heishiv as he killed him exactly the same way that Avner killed Asael. So that's why Yoav killed Avner. The Heishiv Hashem is dome al roishe asher poga b'shnei anashim tzadikim v'toivim menu toivim shoy darshim achav rakim hu loy dar tzadikim sheim b'pev v'loyasav hu begeres asa. So the reason now we get back to when they killed Yoav, the pasuk demonstrates that Yoav, the pasuk demonstrates that the people that Yoav killed, which is Avner and Amasa, were greater tzaddikim than Yoav. That's what the pasuk demonstrates over there. Even though Yoav was the closest person to David HaMelech, the Amasa and the Nishma Bechara Biyad Yoav, the Tanakh tells us that Amasa did not watch that, although Yoav had a sword, he did not watch it. Amarav Shloi Chashad, he didn't think that Yoav was going to kill him. Finally, let's end this parak. Vayikava b'veisei b'midbar. They buried Yoav after he got killed by Shlomo. They buried him his house in the desert. At the base of Midbarhu, was his house like a desert? I mean, the Gemara is going to end off over here that don't think Yoav was just a mean, jealous person who happened to be very close to David. He was the biggest tzaddik of all time. Amar Yehuda Amarav Kamidbar. His house was like a desert. His house was open to anybody. You want to come to Yoav's house, you always had an open invitation. Even though Yoav was the head of the army of David HaMelech, his house was, and warriors usually have gazela and promiscuity, but his house was like clean like a desert. There was no gzela in that house and no arroyas in the house. And the pasuk says, he would give food to the people, to the remnants of the city. Even if he had a little delicacy of a fish, ta'em, that he ate, but he distributed all he had to the poor. So you learn from today is that although Yoav was a bad person, so to speak, and he was asked to be killed by David through his son Shlomo. But at the end of the day, we don't really have any idea who he really was, because the Gemara ends off what a big tzaddik he really was. Okay, we will start.
Thank you.
More. Okay.
All right. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Where do we leave off?
Left off by the Mishnah on Daf Mem Tes Amid Beis. We're going to get to it tomorrow, Mitzvah.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Okay, Hadronach Nigmar Din, and we're starting off the seventh parak called Arba Mises. Arba Mises Nipsul Bezdin. There are four death penalties that are given over to Bezdin. The most severest of them all is Skila. Then comes Sreifa, burning, Herek. We're going to learn killing by the sword, V'cherek, and choking. They're written in a certain order. Specifically, Skila is the most severe. Sreifa, first comes Sreifa, then Skila, because he holds that burning is more severe than Skila. Cherek v'cherek. Zu mitzvah saniskolim. This is the mitzvah of the people who are stoned. Amar Rava, Amar Avschera, Amar Avhuna. Kol mokom sheshanu chachamim derech minyan ein mukta mucham chutz mishiva saman. But the Gemara is now just going to go off on a tangent. It says that most of the time that the chachamim count something, the order does not matter, except in another Mishnah, Masechta Nida. The Tanam we learned in the Mishnah, Shiva Samonim Avirim Ala Kesem. There are 7 ingredients that are used to, if you want to wash away blood from a let's say a clothing. You have an underwear with blood from a woman. If you want to make sure you want to wash away the blood, follow these ingredients in this order. You use roik tafel, megrisum, mereglayim, benesa, boris, kumilia. So if you first rub it with roik tafel, then you rub the stain with megrisin, and then afterwards mereglayim, benesa, boris, kumilia. Then if it's real blood, it would come off. If it was just red ink, it's not going to come off. So what's the difference if it's blood or red ink? Obviously, if it's blood, then it's obviously coming from the woman, and it's not a dye, and therefore she's tamei and also to her husband. But if it doesn't come off, then we know it's just a dye or something like that, and therefore it's not tamei. If you mixed up the order, or you did it all at one time, you used them all at one time, it's not going to work. So we see this Mishnah, the order matters, but everywhere else the order doesn't matter. But in our Mishnah, the order matters. Papa Saba, Mishmei Rav Ama, Abba Mises, our Mrs. Since the machlekes is which comes first, Reifo or Skila, so it must be our Mishnah, the order is matter. That the most severe is the Skila, then comes Reifo, and Shimon argues. So the Idach, then why didn't Rava, in the name of Schreirim, in the name of Huna, count our Mishnah? It's not talking about a machlekes. Our Mishnah is a machlekes type of Mishnah. Therefore, he's not counting those Mishnayos. He's counting Mishnahs that list off lists. Rapapa found another Mishnah in Masechta Yuma, and he says, "Af Seder Yuma, the Tanan Kol Ma'isi Yom Kippur Amunam Al Seder Im Higdem Ma'isi Lechaber Leisel Klum." If you in Masechta Yuma, if you do one without the other, let's say you did the par before if you did the Sa'ir before the par, it doesn't work. Order matters in all the Seder of Mishnayos of Yuma. The idach. So then why didn't Rava use Yuma? Hahu Chumra Ba'alma. There, it's not, of course, order matter over there, but there, it doesn't, just because one has to come before the other, one service has to come before the other service, it does not mean that service is more important than the other service. It just means the Torah says, I want you to do it in this order, but they're all the same. this is the order. Unlike, let's say, Arba Mises Bezin, Skila is more severe and it becomes because you did a more severe Avera, like Mechala Shabbos, that takes precedent over Chenek. Let's say if someone who's Mizana with an Eishesish. So Skila, Sreifa, Hereg, and Chenek is specifically because Skila is a more severe type of an Avera. And according to Shimon, if you did an Avera that requires Sreifa, that's a more severe type of Avera. So that's why it's not included into the counting. Rabbi Huna said, in Masechta Tamid it says the order matters, so that should be also another Mishnayos where order matters, and the Mishnayos tell you what to do to make a Tamid, and the other Mandiyama will say that there it's just a commandment. There the order does not matter. Anyway, the Gemara just got through saying that they're on our Mishnah. It's specifically telling you not just that there are 4 death penalties, but the order matters. The most severest is Skila, and then comes Sreifa, Herek, Chenek. Ram Shimon says Sreifa. Now the Gemara just says, where does the order not matter? So let's just get to the end. Their order does not matter. The Tanam, we learned in the Mishnah, Mitzvahs Chalisa Bahu V'yim Telefnei Bezdin, Hoyinoisin Loi Eitza Hagenis Loi, Shnam Avakar Loi Zikne Ir V'dibra Elav. Mitzvahs Chalitza says the man and the lady come to the Bezdin, and they try to tell him, don't marry this lady, because if she's too young for you, you're not going to have a good marriage. So he says, she says first, okay, I don't want to do Yavamas, I don't want to get married to him, and then he says, then I don't want to marry her. They speak in Hebrew. Then she takes off his shoe and spits before him. It's a spit that everybody can see. So the Amar Rav Yehuda. So the Mishnah tells you the order of how to do it. The Amar Rav Yehuda says the order this is the order. Mitzvahs chalitza, kaira, she says, I don't want to get married. The kaira, then he says, I don't want to get married to you. Chayletcha, she removes his shoe, v'rekekes and spits, v'kaira, and then they read, kachaya asal ish, v'havinaba. We asked the question, Rabbi Yehuda is just repeating the Mishnah. My kamashmalan, masnisani, Rabbi Yehuda is just repeating the Mishnah. Al kamashmalan, this is what exactly Rabbi Yehuda is saying. Mitzvah, this is the way it should be done. The ipach, but if you reverse the order, let's say he says, I don't want to get married to you, and then she says, I don't want to get married to you. Last lamba, it does not matter. Tanya nami hachi, that's one other proof. Ben sheikdim chalitza lechrikika, rekika lechalitza, masha also osi. Whatever is done is done. So now that is what we learn from Masechta Yavamis. But that's the point. Even though the Mishnah gives you an order, don't take it literally. Another Mishnah is with Pukim Maha. Let's give you another example where the order does not matter. It's not Kohen Gadol Mishamish Mishmanim Kalim V'Hedya Ba'Bal. Kohen Gadol wears 8 items of clothing, and a plain Kohen just wears 4. B'Ksainis, B'Mechnasayim, B'Mitznefes, V'Avneit. Right, so he wears the shirt, the pants, the hat, and the belt. Moisav Lein Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol adds 4 more. Choishin Ephraim Ilatzitz. He has 4 more items of clothing. With Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, what goes on first? From the Mishnah, it seems that the shirt goes on first. When he gets dressed, he puts the shirt on first. How do you know the first thing that the Kohen puts on is the pants, the underpants? He puts that on first. So then Tana my Tama Aktum Lexinus. Then why did the Tana say you put the shirt on first? First of all, it doesn't matter. The order is not in the Mishnah is not direct, because really the pants go on first. So you can't take the order that the Mishnah gives as right. But why did the Mishnah mention the shirt goes on first? Why did he mention that that's the first item of clothing that the Kohen wears? Because the pasuk put it first. Why did the pasuk put it first? Because that covers your entire body. That's why it's selected to use as the first. But when it comes to actually putting it on, when you're listing out the clothing, you list out shirt, pants, hat, and belt. But when it comes to putting it on, the hat, the pants go on first, and then the shirt, and then presumably the belt and the hat. But the point is that the Mishnah is not giving you an order, and therefore the order of the Mishnah are not to be taken as that's the order. It's actually the wrong order. But in our Mishnah, the order is what matters. And the Mishnah, again, told you that Skila is the most severest of all the 4 Misas Bezdins. Okay.